Watch Symposium. I'm Austin, and this is the last custom video for Andreas. If you haven't seen part 1 and part 2, links in the description. Also, link in the description to the scheduled live show. You'll be able to jump on, talk with me live, chat with me in real time about some of the things we talked about in his 3 custom videos. So be sure to catch that. That should be fun. All right, in this video, we're gonna compare 3 watches, and his question is, which is going to be a better investment? Which is gonna hold its value more, say 3 years from now? Now the watches in question are the two-tone ceramic root beer GMT Master 2, the all-steel GMT Master 2 Pepsi, that's the BLRO, and the two-tone black dial ceramic Submariner. All right, so I find that the best predictor of the way things are going to be in a couple years are the way things are now. And without a doubt, the best of those 3 to get, if you're talking getting them retail at an authorized dealer, is the steel Pepsi, the 126710 BLRO, because you're going to be paying less, but then the second you go out the door, it's going to be going for more than any of the other 2, even though it's an all-steel piece and the other 2 have gold in it. This is a case of Rolex steel going for more than Rolex gold, which happens. All right, so if you can get any of these pieces retail and you're only thinking about investment potential and well, doing well investment-wise, the BLRO, hands down. That's an easy answer. The second choice would be the two-tone root beer GMT Master 2. That goes for around 11,000, maybe 10,000 USD more on the gray market as opposed to the retail price that Rolex will sell it. And then the last choice would be, if you're just thinking about the money, the two-tone black dial ceramic sub, which only goes for around 9,000 USD more on the gray market. So they all go for thousands more. And so I really wouldn't let that be the deciding factor. If so, you're going to be getting that steel piece. I would look at which you would rather have. I think that's the more important question, because they all do really well if you're buying retail from an authorized dealer. So for that reason, I would look at 2 things, the aesthetics and the functions you're getting. And the most important thing is the aesthetics, in my opinion, because the steel piece, the BLRO, is quite different than the two-tone pieces. And two-tone and steel pieces, they just have a completely different vibe. And some people, love that extra bling. Other people like just steel pieces. They think that they're a little bit more subtle. So that's a personal preference. That's what I would be asking myself if I were you, Andreas, because they all are going to hold their value. I would ask myself which I would rather go for. And he probably wants to go for the two-tone pieces because he's been asking about the pre-ceramic root beer and the ceramic root beer. So he probably is thinking about a two-tone piece. And then once that's decided, you got to think about what function you want. Do you want the GMT function or the depth rating of the sub? Now, you guys know how I feel. I love four-handers, and I think four-handers are always better than 3. And I love the GMT function and the vibe of the GMTs and sort of the travel aspect and explore aspect of those. It's made for people traveling the world. I think that vibe is awesome. And really, I don't think the sub offers anything more except for that depth rating, which really, for most people, isn't going to be practical. Unless you're planning to do some serious diving with your watch, Andreas. And if so, well, yeah, the sub might be an option. But I find the GMT, for me, is pretty much better in every way, right? Because you get the 4th hand, and you can still time things with the bezel and mark times. And speaking of the bezel, the unidirectional bezel on the sub is kind of annoying. They have to have it because it can't be really a dive watch without it. But if you're trying to mark times on your watch, then you have to be more careful, because if you overshoot it, you can't go back. So you have to be careful every time you're marking a time, whereas you can be a lot more cavalier when you're using a GMT Master 2 or just a regular GMT, because you can go back and forth. If you overshoot it, and you will, then you just go back. So it makes marking time a lot easier, which is pretty much most of the way I use this, aside from, of course, the GMT function. Now, before I let you go, let me bring up something from Wes. He's been on my live shows before, and he sent me a voice message, and he said, I'm not really sure I agree with some of your advice in the second video. And the advice he's talking about is, if you stumble upon a, say, root beer, ceramic root beer GMT Master 2 at an authorized dealer, you buy it without question. You buy it first and then decide later whether you want it or not. And he's not sure if he agrees with that. And you know what? He's absolutely right, because it depends on your relationship with your authorized dealer. Now, Wes has an actual relationship. He's bought, I think it was a Hulk from his authorized dealer, and he also turned down another piece which he thinks gave him the cred that eventually saw him get the Hulk. And he's on the list for another watch, which will probably come in because they know he's not a flipper, and they know he's actually buying because he likes the watch. And so if the ceramic root beer were to come, well, he should only buy it if he actually wants it, because if he doesn't, he's really not going to be able to flip it without destroying that relationship. So it really depends, that advice that I gave, on your relationship with your authorized dealer and whether your relationship, in quotes, exists or not. Now, for me, and here's where I was coming from, when I hit the ADs in Tokyo, I mean, they might know my face, but they don't know me, and there is no relationship there. And you get whatever is in the case, and that's it. It's a luck of the draw thing. It's kind of like going to an airport. And so if one of these three watches that I talked about was there, in my scenario, you would buy it. You would buy it, take it home, and then think, do I actually want this watch? And then you would flip it if you didn't, because there's no relationship to maintain. And when you go back, whether you have the watch or not, it doesn't really matter, because, again, it's not going to mean anything whether you get more pieces. You get what's in the case, and it's a luck of the draw thing. By the way, people do have relationships here in Japan with these authorized dealers, but it's the big spenders, it's the really wealthy people. So relationships do exist here, but not for the average person just hoping to stumble upon something at the authorized dealer. So good point there, Wes. Thank you for bringing that up. Anyway, let Andreas know which of these three you would go for. For me, pretty easy. I would go for the steel BLRO. And then my second choice would be the two-tone root beer, which I think is a beautiful two-tone watch, and I think I'd be pretty happy to wear that. The two-tone black dial sub, I would have to get used to it, and I probably could, but I might end up flipping that if I were to get that. It would be my last choice of the three, and it's because it... the special power, the special function is really the depth rating, and I just don't think that's very useful for me. But let me know what you would go for. Let Andreas know what he perhaps should go for, and hope to see you during the live show. Thanks for watching. Take care. See you next time.